Hi guys, so this right here is the Chuwi Hi10 Pro. Now, it's getting a little confusing now. This is very similar to the Highbook. It has the same frame in it. It has the same exact screen and specs and everything else. But the difference with this one is software-wise. So this comes with Remix on there, Remix OS 2.0 and Windows 10 Home, whereas the Highbook comes with Android and Windows. So they're both dual boot machines. And then again, there is the Highbook Pro, which has the very nice fully laminated 1600p screen on it. This one doesn't. So this is 1920 by 1200. It has the Atom X5 Z8300, 4 gigabytes of RAM, 64 gigabyte eMMC, wireless in. I know those specs by memory because I've seen so many devices now that come out with that. So yes, it is getting a little bit confusing, and it also works with the Highbook Pro keyboard. So the keyboard dock for the Hi10, which this model is exactly the same. I do have that with me, so I'll show you the keyboard as well. Okay, so that is still fully wrapped up in the plastic, which is good, so no one has opened that up. And you see there on the side just a little bit of the specs there. The Hi10 Pro, just cut this wrap off. Alright, get this open. So have a look at what is inside the box. We have here, there'll be the power supply. Now if it's like the Highbook, then this will be rated to 3 watts. It's a European one, that is good. And you probably actually see that there. So that is rated, get the camera to focus on that, to 3 amps, sorry, not watts, 5 volts, 3 amps. And we have a USB Type-C cable there they have included too. So it charges, it doesn't charge via the micro USB 2 port, only the Type-C port. And hopefully that Type-C port is running at USB 3 speeds, because on the Highbook and the Highbook Pro, it's only running at USB 2 speeds, which is a bit of an error on Chuwi's part there. So there we have tablet. It still has, of course, the first layer of the screen protector on. There's the 5 pogo port pins there on the bottom. There's the holes there for the supports of the keyboard. And just remember that there's the Highbook Pro keyboard is the same one on this one. So along the top here we have the volume rocker, power on. On the back there's a 2 megapixel camera. The front camera is also 2 megapixels. And on the side there you can see we have micro SD card slot, the Type-C in for charging and also data, micro USB 2, microphone, micro HDMI and 3.5mm headphone jack there. So the build of it isn't too bad. It has no flex in it. I can't feel that creaking or anything. There's no give in that because it does have these torque screws either side. So the left and right we do have stereo speakers, and the torque screws there will help keep that secured in place there. So I'll just have a look at the weight of it. That's 559 grams, which I think is exactly the same as the Highbook. So I'll just have a look at the thickest point here, which well, there actually is no thickest point. There's a thickness there at 8.5 millimeters. So here's the keyboard, and as mentioned, it's the same as the Highbook Pro keyboard, but not the Highbook keyboard, because the Highbook keyboard has these supports a little bit longer. And it's a nice keyboard actually, because the top here is metal. Okay, the touchpad's a little bit small, but it has these supports as well to keep the screen off the keyboard surface, so it shouldn't get scratched up at all. And in my use, it hasn't actually been scratched up, and you do get USB ports either side. So we've got one there, and then of course one on the other side. The USB 2 ports. The build's quite nice. The bottom has a rubberized matte plastic kind of paint job to it with these 4 support feet there. And when you do push it back, the part here, the support for the actual tablet, lifts up the keyboard, so it gives you a better typing angle. So just dock that in and show you what it's like. So there's magnets in there, and that simply just clips in. So the combined weight of both of the keyboard and tablet there is 1.1 kilos. All right, so just get that screen protector off. Well, the first layer of it, there's a screen protector below still on there, of course, and get this thing turned on. Should be battery life in there. So you can see a small status LED. Now that blinks when you're charging it, and when it is fully charged, it'll be a continuous light. The dual boot menu should come up now. So there we have the standard dual boot menu. So we've got Windows or Android. I'll go into Android first. So here we go. Remix is loading up, and this is the setup menu. So we've got Spanish, French, Russian, Chinese, and English, of course. So I'll go through the wireless setup later on. I just want to jump straight into this and we'll have a quick look. So Remix there with Play Store installed, of course, and Gmail is there. So bloatware doesn't look to be anything else. Oh, WPS Office. That's not really bloat though, is it? Sound recorder, YouTube's on there. You could classify that as bloat maybe. And the gallery. Notifications. And there's all the applications there. So you can adjust that. That's a quick shortcut menu there. So you see, Remix is really based on multitasking. So when you launch applications like Calculator and other things here, Gmail probably won't allow. Well, apps that support it, you can run the apps. That's the camera there, by the way. And run things and switch to them very quickly. Similar setup to how Windows runs, because he has it down the bottom. You can just quickly switch to those. That's the home and back key there. So you still get that. Let's have a look at the file manager. That will give me free available space, probably not. Settings. Okay, so we've got 12.1 gigabytes free on the 64 gigabyte eMMC, which of course is partitioned for both Windows and Remix. Now, if I look in settings, so Remix will be running, I think it's only Remix 2 that's on there. Yes, Remix OS version 2, and that is of course running on Android 5.1. 0.1 by the looks of it. And I'll check and see if there are any updates to that. So I'm going to swap over now to Windows, and I wonder if there is a shortcut. So normally you hold down the power button, and when you do that, there would, okay, no. So just power off. So it looks like I'm going to have to do a reboot, and I can't boot directly from Remix into Windows, which you could normally do on the Android ROMs. The dual boot menu, Windows icon, and let's have a look at Windows. So the first setup screen of Windows, and again we have French, Spanish, Russian, and Chinese. Okay, that's taking a little while for some reason. English. I think there's still some background loading going on. At least I hope so. There we go. That was a little slow. Okay, so legal mumbo jumbo there, the Windows. I'm going to skip the wireless setup, of course. I just want to go straight into this, Express Settings. Okay, now I need to set up an account here. Now, if you don't have to set up an account and it goes straight into Windows, that's probably because your seller has already done their pre-inspection check on it, and normally they just boot that up, put it in English for you. Or if, for example, you're French, then they'll put it in French. They'll check it all that there's no problems and then ship it out to you. So if you do get that box that's not all sealed up, then that's why, because they do those pre-inspection checks. It's very common to get tech from China that isn't fully sealed without the factory seals on it. It's just something you have to deal with. I don't particularly like it, but that's just the way it is. So to quickly compare the displays here with the HiBook Pro. Now the HiBook Pro has a far superior screen with a resolution of 2560 by 1440p. It is fully laminated. It is a Panasonic display. And here it is. You can see viewing angles on this one are really good. So being fully laminated, there's no gap in the display. So there's no gap between the IPS panel and then the digitizer glass. Whereas the HiBook Pro does have that gap. And you'll see here that if I get that up to the camera, hopefully that's focusing okay. You can see a small gap of approximately, I'd say 1 millimeter. It's not that noticeable. On some devices, it is really bad. For example, the Pipo X10, that has a huge gap of about 3 millimeters, and it's quite distracting. But this one isn't too bad. So I put the screens there side by side so you can see hopefully a difference there in the quality, the sharpness of this one. This is by far the best screen that you will see in a Chinese tablet on the HiBook Pro. Windows first boot did take a little while. That took about 30, or more than that actually, probably about a minute. So let's have a look at the screen brightness. Okay, at the moment it's 100%. That is 0, 25, 50, 75. I'll keep it on 100 for now. So have a look at the system and available space. You see running Windows 10 Home, and have a look at the free space. So we have 27.6 gigabytes free on Windows, and that isn't fully activated yet because I'll have to connect to the internet for that. You see we have the full 4 gigabytes of RAM, 64-bit operating system of course, otherwise we couldn't get access to all that RAM. And have a quick look in the device manager at what components we have on board. So what disk drive is it using, which is an eMMC. Samsung for a change. Haven't seen a Samsung for a while actually. So that's a Samsung CWBD3R. And wireless will no doubt be Realtek, but it could be Broadcom actually. So wireless is, okay, Realtek, so that's wireless 2.4 gigahertz there. And we do have a switch now, so you can switch over to Remix from Windows, but it looks like we can't just go from Remix straight into Windows. We need to do a reboot there. So that's the unboxing and first look at the Chuwi Hi10 Pro here with Remix and Windows 10. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hopefully I will see you back in the channel soon.